Yeah.
because with that whole experience, okay, so I don't consider myself a psychic medium. I mean, I'll just say I have only seen something physically like that just one other time. And it happened about a year or two ago. And it was because I was going through a really difficult time. Health wasn't super. And then a beloved family member died. And my team was doing an investigation in Gettysburg. And I was like, y'all, I don't think I'm going to make it. I'm not doing well at all. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go. And so I went on the investigation, and that was when I actually saw like what I guess could be an apparition or an entity very similar to how I saw the man in the leather jacket. Ironically, too, I've always joked that I'll only have abilities if like the planets are aligned and like a star is pointing like in a weird direction in the woods, just like very off the wall, like esoteric type of situations. But it turns out the planets were aligned that night too. So I'm like, I manifested my own joke. But that's been the only other time. I do consider myself, I guess you could say, empathic, but I'm very mindful of the fact that I studied theater for a couple decades. I very much have learned like about the human condition, how to analyze and process emotions, how to read body language. Um, so I am very hypersensitive to the fact that any sort of empathy or empathetic skills or anything like that, I feel like that is connected to my acting training because I literally had to study how to be a person.
It makes
So
sense. It makes sense.
yeah, so but there have been times I've had like my intuition has gone off and then it turns out I'm right. So
Yeah.
I started documenting that. Same thing with dreams. I've literally had dreams come true. Um uh but super subtle, like super subtle things, and I usually just see it in like shapes or colors, and when it all matches up I'm like, "Oh, wait a second, I did dream about this." Um
Okay.
so that's been, and I could like and I remembered like what when I had that dream. So usually it's like a 3 or 4 year difference, which is interesting. Um but yeah, so in the conventional psychic medium sense, no. I do think that after the experience with the man in the leather jacket, it made me build up a wall. Because it was a little scary. It was slightly
Yeah.
terrifying. You
Only
know,
a little bit, just a little
only
bit.
only a little bit. It was a little terrifying. So I don't do readings. I don't do readings or anything like that. Like, I mean, I read tarot, but I don't charge. I actually just like to practice. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was, just, like, blown away because I just feel like you have a lot of knowledge. So you've written books, on
Hmm.
a lot of different topics. What is your I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite book that you've written so far?
It's like picking a favorite cat.
Or
Maybe my
maybe the one that you
latest.
had the most fun writing.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, One Bed Over is to me it's a good book, but I also had to process a lot of trauma writing it, so it wasn't the funnest book to write. But the one that I had an absolute blast writing was Women of the Paranormal Volume 1. Because I got to meet so many cool women. Unfortunately, they had all passed away by the time like the book came out, which is part of the conditions of being in the book is they have to have passed because their
Yeah.
stories are concluded. Um but yeah, Women of the Paranormal Volume 1. That was a blast to write.
That's awesome. I saw that one and I was like, "That looks really interesting." And then, oh, I'm gonna blank. I had it on the tip of my tongue. There was another one that you wrote that I was reading a little bit about, and I was like, "I'm gonna have so many books to read of yours, and I'm gonna have to catch up," because I'm like, there was so many good choices. But what is it like, writing all these books? Like, what is like your how did you get into writing? Because it seems like you've done theater, you're a paranormal investigator and you're a writer, and I'm like, holy cow, I'm like, what can she do?
Yeah, so ironically, I was not well, I didn't see myself as a good writer, growing up and going to school, because I had people telling me I wasn't a good writer, so I'm like, "All right."
Oh.
It wasn't until college, when I was so I homeschooled my senior year, not because of any academic issues, but because I wanted to join a Christian mime group, and you had to be homeschooled to join it.
Oh.
That was a weird year. But it actually gave me the chance to really, like, just do school at my own pace, which was nice. Um, and so when I oh, hey, Rochelle. Oh my goodness, I haven't seen you in a while. Um, oh my goodness, so good to see you. Yeah, so when I got to college and I started like, I actually eased into college very quite easily, and it was after I wrote, like, one of my first papers in English, like, I got an A on it, and I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Huh? What?" So, I'm like, "Okay, okay." So, yeah, I ended up, like, doing really well writing-wise in school, and then I went to grad school for theater. And then, oh my gosh, and then basically, I wrote my thesis for grad school, which was pretty much about like all my projects in grad school basically had something to do with the paranormal, like in theater. So my
Okay.
dissertation was about the evolution of supernatural beliefs and how it was conveyed in theater. And I got a lot of really positive feedback on it from colleagues and my professors. And so I decided to put it out in a book. Just as just like, oh, I want to write this and fine tune some of it, maybe make it a little less academic-y, and then put it out. Um, a couple of colleges actually use that book now for their curriculum, for like their theater curriculum, like basic theater 100 level curriculum, um around like Halloween time, for like the Halloween spooky theme. But the fact that I had college professors telling me like, hey, this is actually really good and we would like to use this, and I get a nice little uptick in book sales actually in August, when all this August and December, when all the kids are going back to school. um yeah, so after I wrote that one, I decided to just keep writing. Even if it wasn't great. I did get a book deal with a fairly major new age publisher after that first book came out. And yeah, it just gave me the confidence that hey, I could do this. This was something I could do. And yeah, so I've been writing ever since. So 2014, almost 10 years now. Actually, it has been 10 years. Whew.
That's crazy. That's really crazy, but that's really cool though. I mean, I think it's like I don't know. It's just kind of maybe this is the wrong word to choose, but it's like it's such an ego booster, especially when you have a professor kind of coming to you and saying like, "Hey,
Mhm.
like good job, kudos." Like I feel like that alone right there, I would be like, "Oh my gosh." I'd get too big for my britches. I would be like, "All right, we're going to write 10 books, guys." Like I would be so
Oh my
pumped
gosh.
up. But, like, look, and then that's exactly what you did. You wrote these phenomenal books, and so the one I was trying to think of before was the Hamptonville Hauntings. Um,
Yes.
I've never heard
Yes.
of that, and I was, like, reading, the little synopsis on it, and I was like, "Oh, snap." I was like, "The Trevette Clinic." I'm like, "That looks very interesting," because I had never heard of it.
It's a fascinating spot. It's, I mean, you read the synopsis, but yeah, it's believed to be haunted by over 70 spirits. Based on just my visits there for about because there's about 4 years worth of investigations in that book. Based on my investigations there, the claim is not quite so far fetched. So it's kind of turned into like, all right, this thing is happening at this location. Just try to unearth exactly what's going on. And yeah, it is a fascinating location. Probably one of my favorite haunted spots in North Carolina. Very accessible. It's a great spot. I always recommend it to people, especially if you're looking for untouched haunted locations. So roads less traveled, off the beaten path. I definitely recommend the Trivet Clinic.
I'm gonna have to check that out because that sounds really awesome. Like, I'm super into what I really loved and how I found you on haunted hospitals was I worked in healthcare for a really long time, and that
Mhm,
has always interested me because I feel like there's it kind of started more so with Gettysburg because me and my husband go there religiously. It's a crime at this point. Um but like we I love seeing the different field hospitals and learning about different methods and things that they did,
mhm,
differently than we do in modern age. So I always have taken an interest in like sanatoriums and old hospitals. And then for a
mhm.
while there, I was actually working in I 100% think it's haunted. It's like 5 minutes from my house. It's an old hospital that they ended up turning into a wellness village. And when I wasn't busy at work or if I was on my break, I'd pop up my iPad and I would watch haunted hospitals in a haunted hospital, and I would scare the ever
Wow.
living daylight out of myself. So, like, I that's how I ended up finding your episode, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, this is nuts. So when I saw that in your book list, I was like, I have to get the details on this because I don't know. I think we can all collectively agree there's some sort of je ne sais quoi on like the whole creepy old, like the smell, the feel, the environment of like an
Mhm.
old hospital or some sort of like clinical type of setting. I don't know. It's spooky.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, it's that I know exactly what smell you're talking about too. It's like almost like a not like a mildewy smell, but it's a
It's like a
moist smell. Like
sterile mildewy smell. I don't
yeah.
know.
It's so like yeah, no, I'm glad you can relate because I'm like, I know that smell that you're talking about. It's like in almost every smell, it's or every smell. It's almost in every like haunted, like I always say, reportedly, allegedly haunted hospitals
Yeah.
that I've visited, like whether it's Trans Allegheny or the Trivet Clinic, there's that whole pronunciation is a whole other debate for another time. Um, the family is a very big family, and I've interviewed several members of that family, and they both like depending on which one you talk to, it's either Trivet or Trivette, and I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I was looking at it and I'm like, I don't even remember what I just said. If I said trivet or if I said trivet. But I was like, it looks like a trivet.
I know, it's like Trivet Clinic rolls off the tongue quite easy, but if you say Doctor Trivet, it's, like, weird, so it's like, "Wait, it's Doctor Trivette." So it's like a weird, like, disruption of, like, Trivet Clinic. It's like, "Trivet Clinic?" I don't know. I'm neurospicy, that's what I fixate on.
No, I love it. I love it. I'm neurospicy as well, so we're in good company then. But yeah, so I mean, what is I have to ask, what is your favorite location besides Trivet or Trivet Clinic,
Mhm.
that you have investigated that you feel like you have found some pretty sound proof of something beyond us? Whether it be
Ooh,
cryptid, whether it be spiritual, I would love to hear your take on that because that's one of the things that I love getting on the podcast is just different walks of life, having these different experiences and, hearing about what kind of called to them.
yeah. Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, Trivet Clinic has been one that I've had really weird experiences at that I'm like, "Okay, there's something more happening." I'm not sure if it's quite the proof of the afterlife, um, but it is a like, there's something weird happening from even in, like, a parapsychology kind of aspect. Yeah, actually, yeah, I would have to say it's probably the Trivet Clinic. Gettysburg, of course, I've had some experiences in Gettysburg that, is totally, like, wild and off the wall, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, yeah. Uh, yeah, so, I gosh, I'm, like, when trying to pick which one, St. Albans Sanitarium too, I've had I we caught a Class A EVP there of, this old man's gravelly voice. My psychic medium we were on the main floor, my psychic medium was talking about, like, "Oh, I'm picking up a gentleman, this is his floor, like, this is his space," and in the background, you just hear this old man going, just keep going,"
I would be
and
like,
it's li
"Oh my gosh."
and well, and I could and the crazy thing was we didn't hear it at the time, and I was wearing a hat. I have this hat. Unfortunately, it doesn't work anymore. And the guy who made it for me passed away last year. But I have this hat with 6 different microphones. It's
Oh.
very sensitive. Like I could hear a moth fart. Like I could hear like things happening down the street. Like
That's
that was
fantastic, though.
I mean, it's amazing. And so you would think that with something that apparent I would have heard that. Didn't hear it at all. Although my psychic medium and her son were constantly burping, so I may have taken off the headphones at some point to give my ears a break. But which is entirely plausible. But yeah, as I was reviewing the audio, I hear this just keep going. I'm like,
What?
okay. And we it's actually on my team's YouTube channel. I'll send you the link after this. But it's very like, oh, that's an interesting interesting sound.
That's pretty cool, though. I think EVPs are so much fun because, like, it's like the minute that because like, you'll hear like either a blank space, and then all of a sudden there's just that thing, and you're like, "Holy crap!" You're like, What did that just say?" And you're like, "That we
Mhm.
definitely did not hear that before." And I have
Yep.
like the excitement that you get. I'm like, "There's nothing like it." It's like Christmas morning. I'm like, "Yes." I'm like, "Can we get like 5 more of those? That would be perfect."
Nice. Yeah, no, right? It would make life so much easier. But yeah, so and then at the Trevette clinic, there's a lot of activity in the basement and I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the cat balls, the ones that light up. I feel like they're a little too sensitive. But
Yeah.
that's a whole other debate for another time. But at the Trevette clinic, we were talking to this little girl spirit named Majesty, and we were encouraged. She loves to play with like balls. She loves to play with toy balls. And we have this on video, but you could see the cat toys start to shake. And this is a cement floor, by the way. It's a cement
What?
floor. We were all kind of sitting in a circle, like outside. So the odds of it moving, because it was like literally like moving and like shaking like this, and then it went off. Um, which is like, okay. And there have been times like the cat toys have gone off on that floor, and then I'll go up and I'll start stomping on it. I'll start trying to do things to make it shake, and it doesn't happen. So it's
Hmm.
yeah. So and that's like one of the many things that have happened at the Trevette clinic, especially in the basement. So it's gosh, there's so
Why
many to
is it
choose
always the
from.
basement? Why is it always the basement? You feel like I feel like every location I've gone to, like, you're like, there's always a backstory there. They're like, "Oh, the
Mhm.
basement." When you go down there and you're like, "What? What is in the
Right.
basement? Like, what's happening down there?"
Right.
But
The basement's
yeah,
my favorite
I
part of the clinic too, especially like in the summer, it's nice and cool. In the winter, it's somewhat warm. So I like the basement. I'm not creeped out by them at all. I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" But
give me
yeah,
all the activity
exactly.
in a nice cool area. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, so with all this wisdom, obviously, I'm going to kind of segue into the symposium. I want to
Nice.
know all about this because it's coming up. August, is it 17th?
Yep. August
17th?
17th.
Yeah. So, I mean, getting excited, I'm sure, and I want to tell our listeners, let's talk about this a little bit. Tell us about the symposium, how it started, who's partaking and what this all looks like.
Yes. So this is the very first year that we're doing the symposium. I've always wanted to put on like a paranormal event, like conference type of thing. And I got inspired when I got really inspired when I joined the Society for Psychical Research, and ASEP. They're called it stands for the Association of Scientific Study of Anomalous Phenomena. I have to close my eyes to go through
Oh.
that.
I
But
was
they're
like,
both
"That's."
British. They're both British organizations that are dedicated to researching the paranormal. SPR is going to call it more of like spontaneous instances or parapsychology because they're very sciency.
Okay.
Um, but they occasionally have these conferences, like small scale conferences, though, where it's like, hey, you know, here's a call for papers. We're selecting 7 speakers. Okay, speakers are selected, and people come and watch these presentations, and then they discuss them at the end. And I was like, I really like that. It's not that I don't enjoy going to Paracons, but I do find them a bit overwhelming sometimes, especially if I'm sitting at a vendor table all day and then I'm presenting and then I'm expected to go to a ghost hunt that night. And I'm just like,
It's a
you know,
lot.
yeah, it's a lot. And it's like, I really wanted like some kind of event where I just want to see what people are working on. I want to see
Yeah.
what people are studying, or I want to see like the fruit of everyone's hard work and just have it be that. So I put a call out on Facebook and I said, hey, if I were to book a conference room at a hotel for a day, would people be, that's weird. Sorry, someone just knocked on my door. That's strange. May have to get my husband involved. Anyway, um, that's
Is there
weird.
somebody there? Is there
Yeah.
like a
Oh,
window?
there is somebody there. Hang on a second.
Okay. Yeah, so everybody, the symposium is going to be happening August 17th. It's going to be absolutely amazing. So it'll be in Gettysburg. So I highly, highly suggest checking it out. It's posted. We're going to be posting it on our page, as well as Alex will have some stuff on her page, I'm sure. But keep an eye out on Facebook. Keep an eye out on our Instagram, our YouTube, as we share things as it develops and it gets ready to happen. Um, Towards the end of the episode, we're gonna have a little Q&A, so also be ready for that. If you have any questions or any comments for Alex, just hit us in the comment section and we can get to that. So just shoot them down below and we can get to that during the Q&A.
Sorry about that. There was a
No, you're fine.
DoorDasher. There was a DoorDasher trying to find the, an apartment. So I'm like, okay. And he was very insistent. I'm like,
Oh my god.
excuse me. Poor guy.
They mean serious business. They're like,
They
"Hey,
do.
this
Yeah.
person's gonna be major hangry if we don't get this to their door."
Right. Yeah. So I put a call out on Facebook. I said, would anybody be interested in, um, if I did this, and I got an overwhelming response. Like all these people were like, oh yeah, 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 you should do this, you should do this. And then I was contacted by Ghostly Images of Gettysburg, and they said, we really love this idea. We would love to partner with you. How can we help? And
Yeah.
so they actually offered one of their spaces to us for free. And then Ghost City Tours reached out as well and also offered their space for free. And at this point, I had already signed a contract with the Hotel Gettysburg for like a conference room too.
Yeah.
So, which was good because then we could accept more people as
Yeah.
guests or as speakers. So what we ended up doing is now we have 3 different locations in downtown Gettysburg for the symposium. Yeah, so that's kinda how it started. It was just like, I wanna see what people are working on, and I wanna see everyone's research. Um, yeah, who's interested, and then it just kinda ballooned up from there. It may have been a little too big for this first year, I'm quickly learning, but, I mean, it's good. It happens for a reason. So, but yeah, it's been wonderful so far. Stresses as it is with, any sort of event planning, it reminds me a lot of my wedding, I'm not gonna lie. It reminds me of wedding planning. I mean, I've worked events before, but not where I was, like, the one in charge. Um,
Yeah.
so so it's definitely been, an experience for sure. So
So, what kind of advice can you offer to those in the paranormal field that may be wanting to have their own paranormal event? How to kind of maybe get it in motion or just any kind of advice that you can offer?
that's a great question. I would say for one, like have seed money ready to go because you're gonna have to put down deposits. That's the big thing. The money thing is the big thing. Because don't assume that you'll sell enough tickets to break even. Just be prepared to possibly take a loss
Yeah.
financially. But the other thing is like really decide on what you want from this event. What do you want from it? I know for me, I was really research heavy. So what we did was we put out a call for papers and we made prospective speakers submit an abstract, which is a 500
Oh,
word description of their presentation. And then we had a rubric where we everybody on the team read the abstracts. I have a few who are very academically minded. I mean, I have a master's and I have another one going through a PhD program right now. So we went through the rubric. We did it on a point scale, so it's completely unbiased. And that's how we selected the speakers. It was a very rigorous process, but also making sure like we vetted the speakers, making sure we could offer like the best programming possible, and some of like the more interesting topics. We actually were able to accept a lot of people, like majority of the submissions. I mean, and they were also all the submissions were really good. Like we have missed out so much in this field. We've missed out a lot when it comes to like hearing different voices in the field. Like there are people working on some really fascinating topics of research, and I feel like maybe because they don't have the enough followers or they haven't been on TV, it's like we've missed out on some of these really brilliant minds. So I'm really honored to be able to give these people a platform to present their work.
Absolutely. And I think that's really neat too that you kind of, mentioned that there are a lot of what I'm kind of finding even myself in this newer journey into the paranormal is that there really are a lot of really awesome and intriguing people that have a lot to offer to this field. And like you said, it's totally true. If the follower count's not there and that kind of um how do I say this? I'm like, I guess if the fadness of the paranormal. I don't really know how to say that, but like
Mhm.
if it's not like eye catchy and it's, in your face, I feel like some people they get pushed so far under the radar. And I'm like, I feel the same exact way. So that's why I was really intrigued when I was kind of reading a little bit about the symposium because I'm like, this seems like it kind of just gets down to brass tacks and really highlights the whole purpose of the paranormal field. And that's the evidence and the theories and, the brains behind getting to the bottom of whatever this is that we're all collectively experiencing. And I don't think that, I mean, I haven't seen this done by anybody. And I think it's really neat.
Yeah, I want to say the Rhine Research Center down in Durham may have done something like this in the past, but they haven't done anything like in the last 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that by doing this, maybe it can start like a trend, maybe
That
of
would be
like,
cool.
may like it could start a trend of, hey, this is something that people are interested in because that's the big thing. Like there's been a lot of
Mm.
interest with this. So I would love it. I would love it if maybe this was like the start of like a trend, like, and people can copy this format. I really don't care.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it's like at the end of the day, the field wins. Like if there's more people wanting to, put on their own symposium,
Yeah.
absolutely, like do it. Like please do it.
Yeah.
Because I think. And this is something I've heard a lot from people, but it's like the current events format that keeps happening with like the vendors and then the presentation, or not even presentations, but like the celebrity guests and that sort of thing. Like people are kind of tired of that. And especially
Yeah.
when it's like the same people at almost every event. And that is something that I'm openly critical about. It's like, why would I go to this event when it's like when these people, what the exact same people were just at another event talking about the exact same topic?
Yeah.
Or it's a TV celebrity who just sits on a backwards chair and is like, okay, I'm going to tell you about my scariest experiences while filming this TV show. That
Yeah.
seems to kind of be the trend. And I'm hoping that maybe like this can be the start of something different. Yeah,
It
because
definitely feels like a
we
breath
need
of
it.
fresh air, and I think it's definitely needed 100% because I just think it's really intriguing to see all these, like you said, brilliant minds kind of shooting these different, unique, and probably not have seen or thought of before ideas out and these things that they're experiencing. And I just think like you said, it's different. It's it just really is it's a breath of fresh air. It's gonna give
Yeah.
people something new to kinda dive into and enjoy.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to give people something new, and it's going to be it's just gonna be different, and it's gonna be, and we've told all the speakers too, it's like prepare to be challenged too, because we want the audience to feel comfortable enough to be like, I have a question, X, Y, and Z. So, um, it's gonna be an interesting day, and it's also gonna be the first one. So I've also told people, I'm like, hey, it's also the first time that my team has put on an event like this. So I've told everyone, I'm like, just be patient. I'm trying to circumvent a lot of pain points with events based on my own experience. But just we're gonna be open to feedback. We are gonna be open to feedback. We will have a survey for people to fill out as they go throughout the day, and hopefully it goes well and we do it again next year. And yeah, so cross some fingers.
Yes, I think it's gonna be amazing. I do. And one of the things I also wanted to kind of ask you about is what is going to kind of, besides hosting it, what else is going to kind of be your part in the symposium? Like, are you planning on speaking? Are you planning, like, are you gonna, are you doing anything cool, special, different?
Yeah, so huge shock. I'm gonna speak at my own event. I've told people, I'm like, if anyone has a problem with it, then feel free to send me $2,000 to pay the bills so that we can do the nepotism too.
There
It's
you go.
yeah, so I am speaking at the event. I'm gonna be doing my trauma and the paranormal presentation.
Okay.
Um it's actually been very sought after. It got really good reception at Dragon Con, Galaxy Con. I've had people request it for me, so I'm like, I'm gonna do that. I've done that presentation numerous times over the last couple years that I've been doing it, and it evolves every time. So and I'm telling people, even if you saw it a couple years ago or you saw the webinar version, it's evolved, it's changed. So and that's based on like data, or new information that I learn or things like that. So it's definitely an ever evolving presentation. Will it ever be locked and loaded and just left alone? I don't know. There's always something new coming out, so I'd like to think that it's going to continue to evolve. So yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, even though I won't be able to make it this year, I'm really hoping that you guys plan to do it again because I would love to attend. I'm like so excited for you guys. I think it's going to be fantastic. And I know, and well, I shouldn't say I know. I hope that I'm going to see tons and tons of clips and pictures and videos, so I can live vicariously through those people via the web. But yeah, like another thing that I kind of want to chat about is some of just like your experiences. Some of the things that you have experienced in the paranormal that have kind of shaped your beliefs now, and then maybe also just picking your brain about what your belief system is currently.
Ooh, that's a great question. Yeah, so it's a little complicated for me. I'm not saying that to be a cop out either. It's I was raised very conservative Christian.
Mhm.
And that lasted until I was about, I want to say 21, 22 years old, and a lot of it was just because I just with, it was one of those like existential crises that that kind of spawned an ex of mine who was fairly horrific towards me and another one of my friends who also dated him. Um, Basically got everything he wanted in the end, married his dream girl and was having a kid, and everything seemed to be so perfect. And I was like, holy cow, like where's the justice in that? Like it was just very much this whole, I mean, it's like when you start questioning, kids with why do kids get cancer, that
Why
sort of
does that
thing, or why
happen? Yeah.
why does it happen? So that was kind of like the instigating event. And then it just really made me start to process exactly like what is God, or what is karma, what is justice, what is the meaning in all of this. With my experiences in the paranormal, it does give me some hope that there is uh life after death, or consciousness survival. That's a very parapsychology sciencey term. So, conscious or survival of consciousness. That there's something else out there.
Yeah.
Um, I currently consider myself pagan, leaning on like I'm pagan agnostic.
Okay.
Like I know there's something out there. I just don't know what it is or how to identify it. I've found like different aspects and concepts from different religions that I'm like, yeah, I'm aligned with that. Um, even Christianity, but I have really since turned away from Christian nationalism and fundamentalism. Um, I mean, I was did that year I homeschooled to join a Christian mind group. Like it was very fundamental. Like girls could not sit next to boys. You courted, you didn't date. Getting married at a young age was heavily encouraged. Girls were discouraged from wearing pants sometimes, depending on which
What?
family you were hanging out with. Um, it was
Oh, that's
very
just
teachings of Paul were very prominent in this community. Um, and yeah, so I kind of like drank from the fire hose a bit when it came to that side, but yeah, so today it's like I know there's something else out there. I've tried to align with Christianity even from a spiritualism standpoint cuz spiritualism is an off branch of Christianity. Um but I just can't. I just can't.
yeah.
Like I just can't. Maybe it's the religious trauma, I don't know. So,
Hey, I
yeah.
mean, that there's honestly, I'm coming to the conclusion that there really is no wrong answer in the belief
Mhm.
system. I think
Yeah.
everybody just kind of whatever they connect with and what it makes sense to them. But I think it's neat that you brought up the point because this is something Rachel, my co-host, laughs at me because I call it my own religion. Like I'm just like I
Mhm.
don't know what to call it, but I have my own religion, and it's very similar to kind of what you said. Is like it's a little bit of Christianity. It's a little bit of I feel like I don't really like there's just so many different religions and I'm like, wow, I really like that and I align with it.
Mhm.
And I didn't realize until my spiritual mentor had said to me that there are such a thing as Christian witches. There is um Christian I can't remember what she said. It was like it was a mix of two religions that kind of mix into um being a Wiccan, and I was like, "This is so." That was the first moment where I was like, "I didn't know that these things can kind of like streamline into these different outlets can
Mhm.
kind of streamline into one belief system." And so I thought that was really neat because kind of like you, I was never forced or had any kind of like I don't want to say like religious trauma because I was brought up Protestant. My grandma was very similar to yours and like the sense of, hey, just let her kind of find her own niche. And my grandparents raised me. So that was kind of what I grew up on was just kind of like find your way, find what you like and whatever it is, like whatever. But I do feel like because we were Protestant, it was like, "Hey, we'll kind of preach this, and if it's what you stick with it,"
Mhm.
so that's kind of all I knew was that there was heaven, there's hell, possibly purgatory, and you just gotta be a good, decent human being to get up to heaven. So, I think it's interesting because just
Mhm.
like you, when I really look into certain religions, I'm like, I don't know that I like that. Like, I'm like, I don't like
Yeah.
exclusion of certain people, races, genders, whatever it is, like, I don't agree with that, you know what I'm saying? And so, I don't know, I always thought
Yep.
that was interesting to see people's different belief systems because I always thought majority of my life it was kind of one you can only believe in one thing and didn't realize that you can kind of grab a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and make your way, I guess, so to say.
Yep. Yep. And it is true. It is like, yeah, it is like, okay, really like my own religion. You're right. It's one of those things where I try to make sense of it and it's tough sometimes. And yeah, it's a good.
It's
Oh, yes. Oh, I think my fridge is haunted. Hey. Um yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I struggle with that. Like, other than that, I mean, I really like spiritualism, honestly. You know, spiritualism was very progressive in a time that the world was not progressive. Um, totally on board. Like, for the most part, yeah, on board with spiritualism. It's just that it's the Christian aspect that I struggle with it, but I'm glad that you understand. It's one of those like just make my own brand of spiritualism. The agnostic spiritualism.
I
Do it.
like that, my own brand. But yeah, I just think it's I don't know, that's like one of the things that when I made the podcast, I was like if we're gonna really search for the meaning of the afterlife, we kind of have to get everybody's input on what their belief system is and where it stems from. And, I just think it's really interesting to see
Mhm.
what has shaped that belief system, what has changed it along the way. Like, did you start here and are you still here? Or did you start here and you've, tried out three different religions and they all didn't connect with you? Or I don't know. I just think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so like I wanted to chat more about some of your experiences on investigations and that kind of fun stuff. What are some of what is, I guess, to make it easier, give me one experience that you were like, holy crap, like might have scared you a little
Mm.
bit, and then one that you kind of walked away from it and you're like, all right, that's irrefutable.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a good one. Okay. Going back to the Trevette clinic. Um, yeah. Yeah, actually, the Trevette clinic was a nut was I had 2 there. One of them was a super quick moment. It was actually my very, very first visit there. We were in the again, the basement. It's all gonna be in the basement, spoiler alert, everybody. We're in the basement and I had a new investigator that I was vetting and I was having her lead the investigation. And so what she did was we were trying to talk to this little girl ghost. Her name was Majesty. That's my cat Buddha, by the way, hanging out on the box behind
I
me.
keep seeing him peeking out and I'm like so tempted to be like, kitty.
Buddha, hi. He's not
He's
interested.
so
Um
cute.
he also has thumbs. He's a Hemingway cat. Um
What?
yeah, he's got little thumbs. If I can get him to come over here, I can show you.
That makes me
But
think
yeah,
of, what is it? Meet the Fockers?
yeah,
The
yeah.
Jinx cat, he's like, "Cats don't have thumbs." We're
I
like,
know.
"Oh, what Alex's cat does."
My kitty does. Um, super cute. Uh, I have many cats, so my husband and I are very devoted cat parents. So you'll always see some sort of cat
Oh my gosh, I love
around.
it.
And they hang out on my desk. But yeah, so I had a new investigator in the basement with me, trying to talk to Majesty, the little girl, and she wanted to play tag with Majesty. So going off of like, hey, let's play a game together. And we were playing tag or trying to play tag, and the prompt was I said, touch one of us, let us know who's it. And then you just hear this little voice go, tag.
Oh my
So
gosh.
that was a big that was that and that one is it's contextual. It was an answer to a request. Um, yeah, and we heard I didn't hear it in real time, but I decided I'm like, I'm just gonna go through the audio and see at the spot. And I was like, oh my gosh, we caught this. The other one was at the Trevette clinic in the basement as well. So the clinic was opened by a doctor. His name was Dr. William Amos Trevette. He was married. His wife was very she had a passion for opera. She actually went to school for opera. She sang in church every week. Like she was a singer, very passionate about that. I felt like I could relate to her a little bit because, I have a master's in theater. I love singing, I love performing. But didn't quite reach the Broadway dreams. And it was the same thing with her. Like she didn't quite reach her dreams with that. Um I felt that in my soul. And so and um the doctor's wife, there wasn't a lot known about her. Like I still can't even find a picture of this woman, and it really just makes me sad. Um and my medium was telling me like she was starting to pick up on a woman or like being present. And I'm like, a woman? And she's like, yeah. And so I started naming off these names. And then I said the doctor's wife's name, and my medium was like, yes, that's her. I'm like, that's who I'm talking to. And I'm like, okay, just to kind of see further prove that it may be her, I decided to play some opera for her. And that was, we played La Boheme, or Musetta's Waltz from Puccini's La Boheme. Because I was trying to think, I'm like, okay, what opera would have been really well known and popular in the 1900s, early 1900s, um, or late 1800s, early 1900s, and started playing Musetta's Waltz, and all of our equipment started to go off, like, and our K2 meters were pulsating with the like, if the music surged, like developed, it was at full bar, like full light up. If the music
Mm.
got really quiet, it was only like one or two lights up. But then, like, because we had equipment all over the basement, it actually started to go off like she was walking around the basement.
What?
And watching that was wild. Probably the closest I had ever been to peeing my pants, honestly. Because I'm just watching this, and it's almost like she was walking around the basement singing. It was a beautiful moment too. It was like like not terrifying. It was probably one of the most beautiful yet overwhelming moments of my investigative career. Because like I said, it was like the closest I ever got to peeing myself. So
I
because it
love
was just
that though.
happening.
And I'm so happy you brought that up because one of the theories that I'm kind of playing with right now on investigations is just the use of music more often on investigations and how they're like I just feel like they're a really good trigger and a really good
Hmm.
communication tool. One thing that I had learned, and I would love to get your thoughts on this, is in my time in hospice. I worked in hospice for a little bit, and that was a huge spiritual journey working in
Oh, I
hospice. And
bet.
one of the things that they did a lot of the times was music, like especially if somebody, if we didn't have anybody on our team that could translate or offer comforting words in whatever language, the one thing that we always were able to turn to was music therapy. And for some reason it
Hmm.
always worked, no matter who the person was, what the ailment was. And I was like, well, if it can do that in a clinical setting, I'm like, what's to say that you can't use that in the afterlife to
Hmm.
evoke emotions and memories and trigger whatever kind of activity that maybe you're looking for. And we tried it at my haunted manor in Columbia, PA, and we started
Oh,
to play some
nice.
church hymns, and that was really crazy because we all started to sing together. And similar to kind of what you said, it was a very like beautiful and like uplifting moment. And we weren't getting anything before that, like
Hmm.
nothing. And there was no, I feel like it was almost like a level of trust that needed to be, like a connection that needed to be formed. And it was like the minute we started playing these church hymns, it was like we connected with spirit very immediately. There was just so much cool energy going around the room. So I think it's interesting that you brought that up on your experience, because how do you feel about music and the paranormal?
I personally think it's great. I think music can be a very healing experience, but it can also evoke emotion. Um, and I think that can be a great connector with really almost anybody. Um, yeah, I think music can be instrumental. I mean, I know music can make things a little tough when you're trying to do EVPs,
Yeah.
but I think it's a great way to open conversations and bridge understanding, and bridge understanding between the investigator and the spirit. Because I'm a big person when it comes to like, hey, we need to establish trust with these spirits before we start asking them questions about their personal lives and how they
Yeah.
died, and that I think we need to build a little more rapport before we
Well, like, you
start
wouldn't just
asking the
walk
tough
into
stuff.
someone's house and be like, "So, tell me about how you died." Like,
Wait,
and that's how I
thank
feel.
you.
Like, I'm like, I you just wouldn't open a conversation like that. Usually it's like, "Hi, my name's Morgan. What's your name?" Like,
Yeah, it's like, and that's what we try to do. Like, we try to open our investigations with like talking about ourselves first, because one, we're asking them so many questions, but they don't really have an opportunity to ask us a question, or at least in a way that we can hear it and understand it. So we try to
yeah.
share as much like, not trauma dump, but it's like, hey, my name's Alex. I live in Washington, D.C. I roller skate, I sing, I like theater, I have cats, I have a husband. Are you married? Things like that, like things that you would ask somebody when you meet them for the first time. And sometimes you get spirits who are like, hey, I used to roller skate, I like that, I want to talk more about that. So you get that opportunities to connect. And we've actually had some rather beautiful moments with spirits too, especially um I mean, I'm queer, but I'm married to a man, so I definitely have a straight presenting, aspect to myself. So I do have a couple of queer members on my team, and they've made some beautiful connections with spirits who were queer in life. Sometimes sad because, you
Yeah.
know, LGBT rights only recently, really came into effect. when you look
Yeah.
at the context of history. But I've witnessed some really beautiful moments of that connection, that understanding, and um, like listening to my queer investigators thank these spirits for their contribution to them having rights. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's it's like, oh my
Oh my gosh, I would be like a bawling mess. I would be like, "Guys, stop it right now because
god.
I'm getting so emotional."
Oh yeah, there was one beautiful moment. So this happened at the Battleship North Carolina. My two queer investigators were asking questions. I was actually under during the Estes method, and
Oh.
I was under and I couldn't hear anything. And I just started spouting things that was like word salad, but it was like, understand why you or like me, things like that. And then when I listened to the audio, it made sense. But yeah, it was basically this like my investigator saying, I'm sorry that you couldn't live in your truth. But thank you for all that you've done for us, and because of you and your struggles, I can now say that I'm married to my husband. And
Oh.
yeah, it's yeah.
That makes my
it's
heart like I'm like, I love that. I feel like
it's
connecting with
beautiful.
spirit is just so special. It's
Mhm.
when you have those moments, they make all the hours and waiting and evidence gathering and makes it so worth it.
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. So,
But yeah, I mean that's
nice.
cool. I'm glad that um that you kind of that you agree with the music thing, because I just feel like I don't see enough, and maybe it's just because only so many investigations really make it to the web, but I don't feel like I see in a lot of investigations music being used more as a tool. And somebody in the comments brought up a really great point. So Joanne Price has said, if you go with the idea that ghosts have frequency, it is interesting to think about how the frequency of music can be an effect.
Mm.
And I mean, I hope that in the paranormal community, we start to see music being used as a tool more, because I do think it's super powerful. And music always seems to fill the gap where, how do we know if we're speaking the ghost language? How do we know if we're understanding them correctly? And I feel like the one thing that travels across space, time, boundaries, veils, whatever you want to call it, really, like, music can do all of that. And so that's
Mhm.
kind of like the theory I've been playing with, is creative ways to use music in the paranormal field. And wanted to kind of see if that was something you had played with at all. So that's really neat.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think sometimes maybe using music isn't. I mean, I know a lot of the investigations that finally hit the web, it's like, to be fair, I mean, I understand it's like, well, what's going to generate the views? What's going to generate
Yeah.
the clicks and the engagement? I mean, I don't know. For me, if I see music being used, I'm going to watch. I'm going
Yeah.
to watch
Yeah.
it.
Same
But
here.
I know sometimes, at least in the current climate of paranormal investigating and content creation, it's probably not the most exciting where you could be like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So,
Well, now I want to ask you, we had a little activity set up for you. So we were thinking about doing
uh
a this or that spooky edition.
okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Cuz I'm like, now we talked about music, and I was like, let's do something. Let's do like a little fun activity. So I think there's a total of 20 questions. We're going to kind of rapid fire. If you would use like neither, if it's something where it's like, would you use this or that, or do you like this or that, and it's neither, you can say
Okay.
neither. But ghost or UFOs?
Ghosts.
Okay. All right. Haunted house or haunted forest?
House. Yeah.
Okay. Poltergeist or residual haunt?
Poltergeists are more interesting.
EVP or spirit box?
EVP.
Okay. Ouija board or dowsing rods?
I love Ouija boards. So Ouija board.
Wait, okay, we have to pause. Why do you love Ouija boards?
Their history is fascinating for one, and there's
Okay.
so many different types that are made. I mean, I have a vintage board in my closet. I keep meaning to hang it up. I also collect boards too. The
Do you
history is
really?
fascinating. The name Ouija or Ouija. may or may not be a subtle nod to one of the most prominent British feminists of the 19th century. Um,
Oh.
yeah, her name was Marie Louise Ramée, and her pen name was Ouida. Ouida. And the night that the Ouija board was named, Helen Peters Nosworthy was the medium who was Elijah Bond's sister in law, who did the patent for the Ouija board. Elijah, and Charles Kennard, who was the man who produced the board, they were doing a session, and there's a lot of stories about the naming of the board, but Helen was the one who said, who asked the board, what do you want to be named? It spelled out Ouija. She asked what that meant, and it replied with good luck. Kennard was like, oh yeah, this is amazing. Let's do it. And Helen's like, well, wait a minute. So women who supported Marie Louise Ramée, Ouida, wore a locket with her picture and her name written in script. So it said Ouida. And she's like, I'm wearing this necklace that has this name on here. But Kenner didn't really follow up with that. He was like, I don't care, let's do Ouija. But yeah, so the Ouija board may or may not be a nod to to a very prominent British feminist.
Oh, I did not know that. So that's really
Oh,
cool.
super
Okay.
fascinating.
So
Yep.
a lot of people, I did not have a good experience with the Ouija board, so I am anti Ouija board. But
Mm.
I'm very interested to maybe like a little fact versus fiction. Like, what is one of the biggest myths that you think is like absolutely bonkers? That's
Mm.
constantly kind of
Oh, yeah. I know one. It started because of the Ouija. It started because of the Ouija movie, but okay, see, I really like boards. Um
Oh, I was like, that is a big planchette.
It is. But in the movie, when someone looked through the glass, they could supposedly see the ghosts. And for some reason, that has become part of the Ouija board lore. And
Really?
it drives me nuts. Yeah, there was a very prominent pastor who or clergyman who made a video about it. And I'm like, this is from the movie, you dipsh. It's like, stop fear mongering. But I also get why he was doing that, because he gets attention in business from fear mongering. So drives me nuts.
That's crazy. I didn't even know that that was like that was a thing, because I just thought it was like a movie tactic. Like, I had never heard
Mhm.
about looking into the planchette.
Mhm.
It was always just, you put your hands on it, everybody has to be playing. So that's interesting. Okay, so
Yeah.
we've learned 2 new things about the Ouija board today. So question 6, would you rather, or this or that, seeing an apparition or hearing a disembodied voice?
I mean, I've seen the apparition. I might do. I've done both. I've experienced both. So apparition,
What do you
because
find
I
scarier?
scarier.
I'm gonna spice it
The
up with little
apparition.
mini questions.
Or not the apparition, the voice, the disembodied
Okay,
voice. Yeah.
okay. Um, Investigate an old asylum or an abandoned prison.
Prison.
Okay, and why?
And why? Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah. The asylums I have funny feelings about, just because like a lot of trauma is involved with it. So
Yeah.
well, because I mean, my team and I, we have talked about going to Trans Allegheny, and I'm really trying to make sense of going there. At least I don't want to go and have it be like we're visiting a zoo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Trans Allegheny is really trying with destigmatizing mental health, which is nice. But then they sell t-shirts that go completely opposite of those values. So I'm trying to like get my head around that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I feel like with prisons, I mean, granted, there were people who were imprisoned for, unjust reasons, like just being a woman, or you're a woman that asked a question, you're going to prison. Um,
Witchcraft.
Right, exactly, like, a woman can read? So, um, so the prisons, I'm not saying that would have less struggle with, but, I feel like I could at least go at a different angle
Okay.
if that makes sense. I don't know. It's what the both not necessarily problematic. It's just how I just have to be really careful with how I approach that investigation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I also think like a vibe thing too. I feel like one can tend to carry heavier
Mhm.
energy.
Mhm.
Um okay, so this was actually a little clip that I shared in your intro video. Shadow figures or orbs?
Shadow figures. I have such strong feelings about orbs.
I think you made a video on orbs, didn't you?
I I I covered orbs in a few videos. I think one of them was like things that are mistaken for paranormal that aren't.
Yes, that's the one
I'm a
I'm thinking of.
I used to be a photographer. So I used to be a photographer and I've done a lot of work in video and orbs, at least what people are freaking out about on their ring cameras, like that's covered in the troubleshooting section, everybody. Like
Yeah.
if you look at the manual of your camera, they talk about orbs. And for me, it's like I feel like we spend so much time, or at least not us, but the conventional field spends so much time looking at balls of dust and blurry bugs that we're missing out on like the really cool phenomenon that's happening behind us. It's like we just need to
Yeah.
turn around. Um, so that is one that I do get frustrated with orbs quite a bit, especially when I'm trying to explain to people. And I really try to be sensitive about it too, like if someone just experienced a loss. Um,
Yeah.
I will say, like, I'm not saying your grandmother's not haunting you. I'm just saying that that speck of dust is not your grandma.
It's
I would
probably not the orb,
yeah.
but it could be the floating book right behind you.
Exactly, exactly. It's like, "By the way, I see a shadow person right behind you, so maybe that's your grandma." So,
No, I totally get that. I understand that. Um,
mhm.
so number 9 is cryptids or supernatural entities?
Mm, I would have to say supernatural entities.
I like it. I
Yeah.
like it. Daytime investigation or nighttime investigation?
I like nighttime because it's quieter, but daytime is also quieter in a sense because people don't. I mean, if the place is haunted, things gonna happen. You know, it's gonna happen. Like whichever.
Understandable. Understandable. So human spirits or non-human entities?
Non-human entities. I feel like that would be a little more interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. Which I don't really know if this qualifies as a non-human or but like do you know like the story of Puckwudgies?
I'm familiar with them. Yeah,
Okay. I'm like they're probably my favorite and again this could be wrong, but they're probably one of my favorite non-human entities. Like I have a stuffed Puckwudgie and I'm like they're pretty awesome. A little
nice,
scary,
nice.
but awesome. um urban legends or documented hauntings?
Urban legends are fun. Urban
They are
legends.
fun. Okay. Let's see. Paranormal documentaries or horror movies? Yeah, that's a tough
Whew,
one.
that is a tough one. Because gosh, paranormal documentaries are hit or miss, but then when you reach it, when you run into a good one, it's like, it's
Yes.
they're
Yes.
either really good or they're really bad. That's a tough one. Well, same thing with horror movies too, but at least with a bad horror movie, you can still have fun with it, you know?
Yeah. Like, I don't like Castle Freak. Me and my husband, that's our, like, late night blockbuster, like, special. For like, this
Nice.
one is yeah, horrible, but it's so good at the same time.
Yep. Nice.
Um, alright, let's see. Seance or solo investigation?
Seance.
Oh, I like it. Ancient curses or modern day hauntings?
Ancient curses.
That's definitely a spicier one.
Oh yeah.
Seeing a seeing a ghost or being touched by one.
Seeing a ghost. I don't like to be touched.
I don't blame you. I do not blame you one bit. Spirit photography or video evidence?
Spirit photography.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Haunted objects or haunted locations?
Locations. I would not wanna be attached to a doll or a box.
No, no. Especially depending on who your owner is too, like, that could get kinda seedy.
Yep.
Um, do you believe in haunted objects?
I have a haunted doll, and she was pretty active when I first got her, like, for the first year, but then she just chilled out, like, I don't know, maybe
She's
she just likes
comfortable.
where
She's
she
like,
might be just comfortable, yeah. I mean, when she first arrived, she was pulling a lot of shenanigans, but then, yeah, it stopped, so,
"Oh, what
I don't
kind of
know.
shenanigans? Fill us in."
There was one time my husband was laying on the bed on his stomach, and we have cats, and he felt like there was something walking on his back. And so he reached back, to pet the cat, but there was no cat there. So,
Oh
and
my gosh.
anytime anything did happen, it messed with my husband. So, um, like the toaster went off when I wasn't home and he was home alone. Um, we had stuff on our banister in our apartment at the time that just flew off the banister with no like
Oh
and
my
some people are
gosh.
trying to theorize that maybe it was like somebody slammed the door like 3 or 4 apartments down and we just felt the force. But there's a stairwell in between there was a stairwell between our apartment and the rest of the building. So,
Oh. Yeah, I feel like if there's too many occurrences in one, like, general period of time, it's kind of like, well, what's the new common denominator here? What did we just bring into the house that could be
yep.
changing things a little bit?
Yep. Yep.
Um, okay, so then full body apparition or partial manifestation?
Full body. Yeah.
Okay. And then our last one is investigating with a team or going solo.
Oh, that's a tough one. I love my team dearly, do not get me wrong, but sometimes when I'm doing an investigation with my team, I feel like I have to be on, so to speak, like
Yeah.
I have to be on, like I have to be a leader, I have to be a director, and not just like a person. So
Yeah.
that is one thing that gets a little frustrating sometimes. I love my team to pieces. Do not, I mean, they're amazing, but even so, sometimes I just feel like oh, I have to be director now. So I do like going to other people's investigations because I feel like I can just be me, like I can just
Yeah.
go with the flow and like, okay, this looks good. Like it's like I don't want to make a plan. I just want to go to the location, things like
Yeah.
that.
There's no masking involved. It's just like, here I am, take it or leave it. We're going to try some new things and get kind of delusional tonight, but it's all good.
Yep, exactly. So,
Joanne Price said, once you get past those paranormal teenage years, it's those haunted hormones. So
that's
I think that's.
hilarious.
Does your doll have a name?
Madison.
Madison. So we're possibly in those haunted hormone years, Madison, with
Yep,
Madison.
yep.
But yeah, I mean, so I know we kind of went a little bit over time, but I am so happy that we got to have you on the podcast, and I had a blast chatting with you. I want to have you just one more time, give our listeners and the audience more info on the symposium. If you want to tell them the date, the time, where they can get tickets, where they can find your information.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Paranormal Research Symposium is happening on Saturday, August 17th in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. If you go to associationofparanormalstudy.com, you can get your tickets there. There's a there's a page on our website for the symposium. You can grab your tickets, and yeah, it's $50 for the day. If you that's the online price. If you do purchase tickets at the door, then it's $60. So I do recommend to people, I'm like, if you're coming, just go ahead and get your tickets. Like just get them. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. We got some amazing speakers like Joshua Cutchin, Timothy Renner, Ron Yacovetti, Lourdes Gonzalez, Tony and Cherie Rathman, um, Aaron Taylor, Victoria J, Karen and Chris Carruthers, John Sable, Mary Becker, Ari Spence. Gosh, can you tell I've been talking to these people a lot lately? I'm just like, so yeah, if you go to associationofparanormalstudy.com, that's not all of them either. I could name them all. Um, you can get more information there. You can see the speaker lineup, you can see the schedule. We did just put out the schedule. Yeah, so you can get all up to speed there, and yeah, should be a good time.
And we can find you at the spooky stuff with Alex Matsuo. You have the website, and then pretty much when you go there, guys, you can get her books, you can check out all her happenings, podcasts, YouTube videos. I mean, everything's right there. So definitely go give Alex a follow, subscribe, check her out, check all the neat stuff that she's working on. And again, thank you so much for joining us. We had a blast with you today, Alex, and hopefully some really cool stuff in the future. You can come back on, we can chat more about it. But yeah, we're just happy to have you.
Thanks for having me. This was awesome. It was wonderful talking to you.
Aw, thank you. I'm so happy you came on. But yeah, so one thing that we do before we wrap up our podcast is we say, until next time, everybody, stay weird. So I always invite our guests to kind of jump in with us. So I'll kind of give us a little 3 count. We'll do 1, 2, 3. Until next time, everybody, stay weird.
Cool. Oh.
All right, awesome. All right, have a great night, everyone.